Hey guys, all right. So I think we've all had a few drinks. I know I have. So we're going to try and keep this a little bit fun and lighthearted. But when Josh and Julie asked me to come and speak at this event, I really wanted to talk to everybody here. Mostly, you want to come up front here? Mostly on people working in tech. How are you actually implementing AI in your business? What are the tips and tricks I've had from building this? We've built a lot more systems than we actually have out there, right? Like as you're building, you're iterating. And iterating means throwing a bunch of stuff away. It means starting again. And so I think the best way to really get you started on this is to walk you through an example. Our really keystone client who got us started in this world and building really cool stuff is a client called OrthoScribe. And what it was, a doctor came to us and said, hey, I hate doing notes. I'm a doctor, I'm an orthopedic doctor, I see 40 patients every day. And at the end of the day, I have to remember what I said to each of these people, what they said to me, write it down, and then submit all that to insurance. And so I said, this is a perfect application of AI. He gave me just a beautiful prompt, which is solving his problem in a very narrow niche, incorporating a lot of the things that AI does very well, which is remembering, documenting, repeating, all of these things. Really great where that goes. And so we built it for him. His friends saw it, his practice saw it, they started implementing it. We started bringing on new doctors, new practices, growing and growing from there, and our systems grew from there. And that's something we're going to talk about tonight is how you start simple, grow from there, not being afraid to throw something out or start again, because this is all very new territory. I know my background, machine learning, I spent years refining data, cleaning data, working to make everything microscopically better every day. That was the old world of machine learning. That was the world of Python, data science. Where it's going now, I saw GPT-3 API came out and boom, overnight I felt like what I'd been working on in the past 3 years was replaced. And so that means a lot of things to the way you develop applications. It means a lot of things to the way you think about problems in the new world, because now you have a magic box. You go, hey, magic box, what's the answer to this question? It'll give you a pretty good answer. And if you can scope your problems to where pretty good will get you pretty close, you're halfway there to the solution. Started simple. We said no to fine tuning. We said yes to frameworks and tools. So that means we're using what other people have. When I say we're an AI company, we're not competing with OpenAI. We're not competing with Anthropic. We're using what they do to make money off of it. So, even as we talk about the implications of AI and trying to think about the existential dread that comes with knowing that one day we'll all be replaced, just try not to think about it. Bury that down deep. Let it turn into a nice ulcer, and just focus on how you can make real business impacts with AI. And that's where I wanted to focus. That's at least something I can get my head around. So that's what we did. And so we're going to start tonight by going through an example of just one of the simple ways that you can build with AI. This is one of the first things you're going to learn about if you start looking at AI. It's called RAG. Retrieval Augmented Generation. It basically says, hey, let's say I'm a business. I've got all my business knowledge base. I've got it in Notion or wherever I keep all my data. When I ask ChatGPT about a question, I want it to look at my documentation and then give me an answer. This is about as basic as it can go. You start here and you go, hey, this is great. Send it out to everybody. They go, oh my God, how did you do this? This is amazing. For about 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, you've solved 80% of their problems. And now all they want to talk about is the 20% that it won't solve. Right? And I always say there's only really 2 hard problems when working with AI. Naming variables, that's always hard. Hallucinations and scope creep. Those are the two big ones. So let's go to the next slide here. This is what that little thing turns into. This is the same RAG implementation. This is just like 6 months later. 6 months later, you're going to have different problems. It's going to grow. The complexity is going to grow. This is the same thing. Those are both RAG. Those are both things that AI can do. But as you're working, you have to understand that as soon as you put that first step in here, the second step is going to follow. And so anywhere we can, we try and simplify, eliminate tasks. I know I was talking with some of you guys in here earlier, and you're like, hey, we go into businesses, they've got a 10-step process and they want to automate the whole thing. But when you come in and you try and automate things in businesses, it's often the case that what you need to do is eliminate steps 1 through 5, go straight into it, move from step 1 to 5, and then maybe 5 to 7, and then 7 to 10. You are reworking the whole process. AI can do so much. You need to rely on AI to do what AI is good at, and really take yourself out of it. Be willing to iterate, get rid of things. If I had started my RAG implementation with this, I might never finish. If I had started, this is where I want to go, let me write this out. If I started with a room full of managers and product managers and we had designed this whole thing and then sent it over to the dev team, this would never get out. But if we start with the devs, we develop the simple one, and then when it breaks, we fix it, that's where we go. But, in AI, as much as anything else, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so there's so much to AI between hallucinations, it's not always going to be correct. And in that way, it's just like a human, right? It's not always going to be correct. You get a little mad when AI is not correct. But here, we're like, hey, it's not going to be correct, but you can always get to something, and we're going to get to something good, and you can go over it again and again and again. In OrthoScribe, this is somewhat similar to a RAG process we have in place. But in my diagram for what OrthoScribe does, which listens to the doctor-patient conversation, generates clinical notes, generates diagnosis codes, and generates billing codes. This is one little box in a much bigger process. So when I actually show what OrthoScribe does in a technical fashion, this is a tiny box on the screen. But this is what happens on the back end, right? So there's still complex processes. It's still in AI, and like everything in software, it's hard. You know what I mean? So I want to talk to you about what to build as you're going in. There's so many things to build. Like if we stay in the realm of medical, we could build things for patients, which is always great because we're all patients, right? But patients don't have money. They're not looking to buy anything. It's the doctors that are really driving that business forward. So that's where we chose to hit there. And the doctors are really good at talking to you, understanding your problem and how to fix it, right? How to get to that problem. What they're not great at is remembering exactly what they said to everybody during the whole course of the day, and then writing that down exactly at the end of every day, and then turning, hey, I broke my wrist with a radial fracture, into, oh, that's a T56.58XA. That's a hard job for a doctor. That's a hard job for anybody. But you know what? The computer's really good at it. And we don't want to make an AI that comes in and says, hey, let me diagnose you and really understand you and get to connect with you. That's what the doctor's really strong at. We want to replace their weaknesses. We want to replace their coding, their documentation areas. And as you think about that as a business, if you're a consulting business, if you're working on, what is it that you do really great? Don't think first, let's go in and do what I do really great, but let's do it with AI. No, you already do something great. Do what you're bad at. Do what you hate doing. That's what AI is here for. It's to take that burden off your plate so you can focus on what you're great at. The best problems benefit from imperfect solutions. I've always said, like, when I'm looking for new markets, where am I going to go into business? My favorite businesses and areas to go into are where I see a bad company, somebody with bad software, making money. That's where I know there's a problem there. There's a problem, people are willing to spend money that hasn't been well solved. That's where I want to go. One of the last places you want to go is somewhere where only a perfect solution is going to make any money, because you're never going to get to perfect, and you're going to be chasing that dragon for a long time. Start simple, stay nimble. That is just, hey, you're going to replace things. You're going to be throwing away things. I work with a lot of data scientists. I, am a reformed data scientist myself. But as you go through, I've come to so many people as we've hired and worked with lots of really, really talented people in the field who come at it with a very university mindset to these problems of, I'm going to start with scikit-learn, I'm going to start with TensorFlow, I know exactly what this problem is, I studied this in university. Here's what we're going to do, we're going to get a bunch of training data, we're going to clean it all up, we're going to hit it there, and I go, did you ask ChatGPT? Did you go and just say, hey, like, what's our baseline here? How long is it going to take to do that? And so many times, they want to do in this big, long process, because that's what we've been trained to do as developers. It's already solved. Like I said, you've got a magic box, and it's hard to get your mind wrapped around having access to a magic box that solves so many of our problems. Use frameworks. I love this, and I use this on my engineers all the time. Everybody wants to write reusable code. Nobody wants to reuse code. So, how many times have you, as an engineer, somebody you worked with, like, hey, we do this thing 5 times, I'm going to write this new framework, and we're going to use this, and it's going to be good, and I'm going to teach it to everybody on the staff. Then nobody on the staff knows it. Nobody on the staff can use it. You've got one guy who's the siloed information hub for this new framework that you've invented, and you're the only maintainers of. Get rid of that. If any techies in here, we really enjoy the Lang-Smith frameworks, but it's a framework where I know there are dozens of people working every day to improve something, and I get to stand on their shoulders. Because I'm not in the business of writing frameworks, I'm not in the business of building my own large language models. I want to take those tools that somebody else has spent a lot of time on, use them for my own benefit. That's what we're here for as implementation experts. There's easy problems and hard problems. Focus on the easy problems, skip the hard problems as long as you can. This is, we're trying to get things out, we're trying to get things moving. Okay, so we're done. No.
I would love to argue the room crowd. Got any questions that anyone may have? I'm sure somebody's got a question somewhere. Somebody's going to have a little AI question.
So again, computer science, high school dropout, so went to finance instead. It was not for me. But I'm curious again, this is part of like a building mindset. Can you give the audience something, just anecdotally, one of your favorite projects, maybe that you've worked on, and maybe just touching on some of the dynamics of everything that you spoke about as well, like pillars of embarking on different projects, right? So I'm curious, just favorite project, and then the most challenging project that you dealt with. And you don't have to go on that, I'm sure you can talk all day about it, but I'm just curious. Come on.
I love the hero projects, right? So a lot of times we'll be called in where somebody has already spent a lot of money, spent a lot of time solving a specific issue, and their developers just didn't come through. They just didn't deliver. And so we get to step in, big guys on campus, come in, deliver quickly, come in to where somebody's already done a lot of framework. We can work on what's already been built, but make a lot of really nice touches, kind of what I call the sizzle to the steak, right? That's what sells, and that's what we want to do. Because when we come in and talk with a business, we're doing as much talking to the business at the business level as we are talking to the business at the code level. So we want to make sure that whatever they're doing talks to their customer, talks to the end user, talk to the person with the checkbook, as much as we're talking to the developers and actually what's there, which, I think in AI terms and in business terms, it takes that outside perspective so much of the time.
So that quick question, man. So when you're speaking to somebody, like let's say like myself, that's maybe a novice in or understanding that space, understanding like why my great company right now, as successful and as productive as it, and as revenue generating as it is, it can still benefit from what you're bringing in, right? You and your team, from a process standpoint. So I'm curious, like, how are you navigating that conversation and explaining it to somebody like myself and quantifying your potential impact? That's what I'm saying.
So a lot of times the answer is no. That's my favorite thing to say to people is no, or tell you your idea is dumb or it doesn't make sense for your business, because I'm not going to start, pitching you on something like, so many times client comes to me and says, can you do this? Can you do that? Yes, we can do anything. Like it's tech. We can do anything. Do you want to do that? What does that mean for your business? Yeah, you hate this, you don't like it, but if it's going to take me $100,000 to develop and it's going to save you 3 hours a week, it's not worth it, But can we hit that revenue generating side? Can we hit some really substantial costs? So quantifying what it is before you get too invested in thinking, can it be done, is should it be done? The Jurassic Park saying, we want to think about should we do it before we think can we do it.
Any last questions? No other curious little cats in the audience? All right. Oh, one more.
Hi. I was just curious that how tough is it for you to explain how AI is going to generate revenue to different clients, because it has been a transition for, I think, 2 to 3 years. And now people are adopting AI more and more. But I come from a finance background and I work at an investment bank. And it's really tough to explain to people that, AI is going to generate revenue and it's going to automate processes and stuff. So as a young CEO, how do you feel like, how tough is it for different clients?
Definitely different strokes for different folks. If you're talking at the enterprise level, you've got so much past history of this is what was done, this is what was missed, and you've got huge amounts of human capital that you're expending on reading this, finding this, and those little things. And like I said earlier on ICD codes, doctors are horrible about it. They know it, the admins know it, It's not a good task suited for humans. And I'm sure in finance and business, you've got a lot of tasks that are just not suited for humans. You go cross-eyed looking at the screen, right? Like you can't do it. AI is going to have a higher success rate. And you guys are numbers guys. You're dealing with percentages here and there. So if you can say, the smallest of percentages make a huge difference for you. Where if I'm talking about a startup, like a new company, I've got to have a huge percentage chunk to make any kind of difference. But you're dealing with much smaller chunks. And I think that's the way to go about it is you've got a ton of data. You're coming in much more well-armed. And you're also talking to people who understand numbers and how that works the whole way through.